Welcome to Fort Grit Diamonds in the Rough, where we dive deep into vibrant stories of triumph in Fort Smith. In a city that demands grit, we celebrate the spirit of success against all odds. Join us as we uncover inspiring narratives, exploring the journey from rough diamonds to gleaming success stories.
What's up, everyone? We are finally here at Fort Grit. What's up, Lloyd? Can you believe we're here?
Hey,
we finally have somebody on our show, and we didn't have to pay him to be here. Yay for us. Who do we have in our chair, man?
We got the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Fort Smith himself.
Chris Chaney.
Chris Chaney.
Welcome, my guy.
That's a hell of an intro.
Listen, we didn't even have to practice that. And I wish we would have had everything recorded before, because he started... Listen, when you're around Chaney, you can't help but to want to learn from this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it can just be a simple conversation. And I'm just like locked in. And I just told him a minute ago, you can sell ice to an Eskimo. I don't even know what you're selling me, but I'll take 3 of them, okay? And that is how Chaney presents himself. So if you guys know him, you're going to love him. And I cannot wait to dive into your story. Are you excited to be here?
Man, I'm excited. I like this setup. This is the real deal.
Yeah, I think, thank you for giving us a chance, to tell your story, because...
I appreciate y'all invite, because you messaged me.
I did, I messaged you
Lloyd
first.
messaged, and I was like, okay, this is the same show. This is not 2 different shows.
Yeah. This is we're a united front. We were tossing ideas of who we wanted on the show, and of course, when you think of Fort Smith, you think of you, and you think of where you've been. And like we talked before, I remember knowing you from back in high school before you became Chris Chaney. I knew you as somebody else, and then I've seen you involved, and you knew him from a different.
I knew you from like my brother. There's other people too in this the barbershop. So.
And I'm sure that if you know Chris, status.
Status.
Hey, okay.
Real out here.
But let's dive into it. I want to know about you.
Yeah.
So let's go from the very beginning about Chris. I want to know. We talked about obviously where you came from, and I loved your analogy on that. It took me a minute to get it, but I was like, okay.
The very beginning.
And listen, speak freely on our podcast. Okay?
Swimming, I was swimming. You know what I'm saying? I made it.
You did.
It's 4 trillion to 1.
Listen,
and I'm the one.
And I told him he wasn't just like this. He was coming out like this. He was shimmying and shaking his whole way through his daddy's sack. That's what he was doing. I was excited.
Made it.
So tell me, where are you from?
I'm here, born and bred, Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Okay.
But I was raised by my grandparents. So I was adopted.
Wow.
At 18 months. My grandpa used to say 11 months. But what I realized looking at the paperwork, that, when you're adopting a child, there's, the child has to be in a home for a little bit.
Okay, placement,
formalities and stuff. So I was thinking, but the actual... my original birth certificate, it said 18 months.
Okay.
So
is this your father's or your mother's side of the family?
My dad's side.
Your dad's side.
My dad's mother and his stepdad.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So where was your mother? And if there's anything you can put me on pause. So I'm gonna be asking questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're not comfortable with answering things, not a big deal. But I'm gonna ask the questions. Okay. So where was your mom during all this?
So my mom, she was 19 when she had me.
Wow.
And so I am number 4.
It's a Tupac story.
Okay. So
I was younger than that when I had my daughter.
So she just, my mom and dad, they basically, from what I understand, they terminated their parental rights.
Okay. Were they together when
they weren't together?
Okay.
But my grandparents, they didn't want me to just be lost in the system.
Yeah.
And so they said, hey, we'll adopt him. My dad, everybody's already grown. So you got this elderly couple taking in an infant.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, that's kind of phenomenal because they didn't have to. My grandpa was in his 60s.
Wow.
So
that's probably a big culture change for them.
Oh, man, yeah.
Start all
a
over.
whole baby, and then my mom, she just kind of doing her thing, and
where's the tissues? How this is going to end. Holy hell, I'm going to need the tissues.
Yeah.
Wow. And I never knew that.
Yeah.
I would have known, so thank you for sharing.
And she, matter of fact, we're texting now, my mom and I, my biological mom, and so she works for my company.
Okay. Before we dive, So before we dive into that, I know we're going to be jumping around, but it's my job to keep us, we got to get the full story.
To keep it moving. Yeah.
So you moved in to, they got full custody of you.
Yeah.
So being raised with older quote unquote parents, but your parents.
Yeah.
What was that like being little Chris, growing up with your grandparents? And were you there by yourself?
This is a cool situation, guys. Like
I never thought about this stuff in a long time. It's just what you did,
I don't get asked these questions.
Yeah. I told you we were gonna dive in the grit, baby.
It's so my grandparents were strict.
Okay.
My grandpa was a very stern guy. I never saw him wear tennis shoes. I never saw him wear jeans. T-shirts, any of that. It was always slacks,
Sunday best,
button up.
all the time.
Well, his Sunday best was the best.
Suits.
His Sunday best was the real deal. Okay. And then his weekday, and he basically was a uniform for him. It was a button-up t-shirt, a button-up shirt, short sleeve, and then slacks, belt tucked in, dress shoes. He had his work dress shoes. Then he had the dress shoes.
Yeah.
And so, man, like when my feet got big enough to steal his dress shoes, I was stealing his dress shoes. But I was a latchkey kid.
Okay.
So, back then, as long as you knew not to open the door, they would leave you at home.
Right. Oh, yeah, I remember being left in the car when my mom would go grocery shopping.
Don't get out.
Crack the window a little bit, let me breathe.
Strangers, none.
Yeah, cigarette smoke in the car because they were like that. Yeah.
The whole deal, the whole nine.
Were you the only kid in the household?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, man, my grandpa drove taxi cab, and my grandma, she was a cook for a hospital in Van Buren. And so my grandpa, he would leave earlier than her, then she would leave to go to work. And I went to Howard Elementary, and Howard was right across the street from the house that I lived in. So my grandmother, she would lay the clothes out, whatever she picked out for me to wear. She would lay the clothes out. I'd wake up, put the clothes on, and just walk across the street to school. It was nothing. Weekends, my grandpa would be going to work, and I could time whenever he would come to check on me. He'd bring in donuts, and as soon as he left, I knew what time my grandma was getting off. I knew what time my grandpa was getting off. So
there was structure. You had structure.
Yeah, a lot of structure, but when they were gone, I was in the wind.
So what? Right.
That's
what I was going to say. So when you're alone, what are you doing? I mean, obviously you're in grade school age at this time.
Yeah.
So kind of like to set the precedence of where you're at. You're in grade school. So what were you doing during that time you were by yourself? I mean, being alone. Did you have your siblings come visit you or anything?
So it's 15 of us on my mama's side.
Like siblings?
Yeah. Hebron is my biological brother.
Yeah. Like you were telling me that. But like,
that's a whole story. As a matter of fact,
I didn't know like he was your blood brother. Listen.
If we could do
15 that came from.
Yeah. If we could listen, if we could do a part 2 and have Hebron and I here,
I'd love
it would
to.
be this, and you would definitely need the Kleenex for that.
Because I'm down for part 2.
Our story is very unreal.
So he went through the same thing you went through?
Well, Hebron aged out of foster care.
Okay.
I was fortunate to be adopted.
Right.
My other siblings, they weren't as fortunate.
So did they go in the system?
Yeah, everybody went through the system at some point. No, I got adopted at 18 months.
Right, but you ended up at...
Yeah.
Right.
So, my brother Steven, do you know Steven? He's around your age.
I don't think I know.
Well, Steven, you look at Steven, he's a great job, but if you ask him what he went through to get to where he's at, man, I remember being in barber school, and I was looking for ways to just pay for school. So I thought, well, I've been through the system, so I'm gonna go and see if there's money, like DHS money, to pay for school. Yeah. So I show up at the DHS offices, and so I had to get my birth certificate unsealed because at the time Arkansas had closed adoptions, and so my original birth certificate was still sealed. On my current birth certificate, it has my grandparents listed as biological parents. Okay. So I go, and I'm supposed to do this counselor session with the DHS workers. So I'm sitting in this room, and I'm like 30, 31, something like that. I'm sitting in this room, and the older lady, she comes in, she's like, okay, tell me your name. I'll tell her my name. She's like, well, who were your parents? So I tell her my mama's name. And she looks at me and she goes, wait a minute, who are you? And I said, well, my name is Chris Chaney. She goes, I've never met you. And I said, no, there would be no reason for you to meet me, you know? Right. And she goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out why this lady's asking me all this question. Yeah, so I say, man, listen, man, I'm in barber school. I'm coming to see if there's funding for people who've been through the foster system and to help me pay for my barber school. She said, one, that's normally because I'm older, you know. She said, normally that's reserved for if you're getting out of high school or something like that. I said, okay, that's fine. And she goes, but what I'm trying to understand is how are you stable? And I said, ma'am, I got a whole business. Yeah. And I'm going to barber school. I don't understand what you're saying. Yeah. Well, what I didn't realize was this woman had been a caseworker for my other siblings. For this whole time. Wow. So she leaves out and goes gets another caseworker and says, you won't believe whose son this is.
So she's been dealing with your family for a while.
I'm 40.
Yeah.
My oldest brother is 42.
So for 42 years, she's been doing this with your family.
She's like, how are you stable? That's
because I'm sitting there, because if you, the foster system isn't designed to create stable people.
Right. No, it's just to get them.
Yeah, to get them somewhere
and sheltered and then on their way.
And so you look at me and you're like, okay, entrepreneur. I'm going from one field, janitorial, into barbering, which the connection there that's unreal too. But
right.
We're gonna get into that for sure.
I go into it and she's like, how are you stable? Well, I get it because, man, listen, I got a sister doing 50 years for murder. Wow. You know what I mean? And so my mom 2 times, went to the penitentiary 2 times. My oldest brother been to the penitentiary 5 times.
So you're like, you're not a part of this.
Man, I'm an outlier. I'm supposed to. Listen, I'm supposed to be, my neighborhood, it was nothing but drug dealers in my neighborhood.
So going back to when you were a kid and you're living in this neighborhood, because I'm trying to connect how you got here, right? Yeah. I'm trying to connect what clicked in your mind to think, because you mentioned earlier, you always have a CEO mentality, correct? Right. Did I quote that? Okay. And so I'm trying to connect, even for our viewers and our listeners, you know, what clicked from you making you were one decision away from being in prison, right?
Literally, I'll tell you about it.
Right, okay. So tell me about, you were a kid, you know, your dynamic with your grandparents, you know, I think we're visualizing that. But tell me when were you there and it clicked in your mind that you wanted something different from a grade school age? Take us through grade school to high school. I want to know what this led up to here.
So I had a terrible temper. In grade school, terrible temper, and what looking back,
you kind of see where that's.
Well, it's this is what you gotta imagine. So you asked me, did my mom had 15 kids. When you have other kids who their parents knows your biological parents,
and you're kind of
and these other kids are telling you things that their parents told them about. A woman that you don't have a relationship with.
Right.
Now we got to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, my temper was, anybody that knows me growing up knows that my temper was through the roof.
Wow.
And so I would be in class. Miss Green, she's the principal at Howard. Not too long ago, I was doing an event at Howard. And she came up to me and I introduced her to a lady that I was working with at this event. She said, I don't know whose prayer went through, but I'm glad it did, because she was a science teacher at the time, and she's a principal now. I'm talking flipping desks. Like they didn't. When once I went left, they was like, let him do what he do.
Yeah.
Till he calms down.
Do you think they knew that's where that came from? Do you think the people that knew your story kind of gave you some grace because they maybe understood?
Probably one of my grandparents. And my grandpa was pretty well known. He drove taxi cabs, so he was self-employed. But he was a straight up and down guy. Like, as far as, I mean, he didn't really take any, and this, you gotta understand, he's born in like 1920. So this guy's a guy that's, been through.
Was he in the military at all or anything?
No, I don't think so. But him and his brothers, they were different people. They didn't play any games. these guys were guys that they would shoot you on sight kind of guys.
Wow.
You know, and so my grandpa pulled a gun on me one time. Like my grandpa, I watched him shoot at my daddy one time. Like this dude, but he was. When he was sober, he was not you didn't play with him. There was no
your grandpa or your dad?
My grandpa.
So he was an alcoholic.
He was a huge alcoholic, but he was functional, right?
Functioning.
So he would drink, they would get drunk, they would argue, my grandma and grandpa would argue, they would go to sleep, they'd get up the next morning and go to work.
Today's episode wouldn't be possible without one of our amazing sponsors, Franklin for Life, a trucking company steering you towards success. You want to get a hold of them? No problem. 479-384-1586. Thank you, Franklin for Life.
And like nothing ever happened.
Nothing ever happened.
Well, you know, that generation of people, and I'm learning this from my grandparents because my grandmother, you know, has always kind of struggled with mental health, is that they never had the option to leave each other. Divorce was never on the table. And you talk to a lot of couples from that generation. Alcoholism was always kind of very prominent. And the women, you know, and they always say, like, later on in life, the men kind of, you know, they grew out of that and things in their marriage were great and got to enjoy grandkids, et cetera, and so forth. But, you know, they didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
But you're also kind of seeing, too, that abuse is okay in a sense of, you know, with alcoholism or whatnot.
Yeah.
So you're in grade school. You've got this temper. At what point did you sit there with yourself and say, I want to be different?
So
when you got into high school, was it?
No, it was junior high. So I was on Ritalin, and which is crazy because
ADHD,
it's a type 2 narcotic.
Yes.
Now you know what I mean.
Oh
so,
yeah.
I'm a kid. I'm on Ritalin, and I remember.
So were you diagnosed with ADHD?
Okay. Yeah, and back then it was ADD.
Oh, yes, ADD.
And I think they add letters to it. You know, these days, but
it's like ADD, ADHD.
Yeah, and it's different pockets of it, but you know, being on Ritalin, going into junior high, I told my grandma, I said, I don't want to take this anymore.
I heard it suppresses you. I heard it changes your whole, and I think, and that's a whole other topic I feel like we could get into because I think that a lot of people I talk to now that have been on that medicine, and they're a different person looking back on it. You know, instead of people working through issues or therapizing what you were going through.
I went to therapy as a kid. And I guess I think that's where they decided
right
for the medication.
Yeah.
But and my grandparents were afraid to let me stop taking.
They didn't know what was going to happen.
Man, listen, I'm telling you, if you talk to my cousins or somebody, they're like, man, this dude right here, like, so what happened was what I learned to do to cope with it was just to laugh.
Right. Oh yeah. Like,
you know what I'm saying? Like if I got mad, I would laugh. Yeah. Not like the Joker. Not like that.
Well, I make fun of trauma. That's how I get through trauma.
Like, I'm like, you know what? And so I would tell people, I smile constantly. Yeah. And it's not because I'm always okay, but because I realize that it'll be okay. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, so there was times though, as a kid where specifically I had gotten into a fight and I didn't want to get into the fight because of the respect that I have for the individual. But I got into this fight. That particular fight put me in place to where I didn't have issues with anybody else.
I kind of set the precedence, like I'm gonna be about it.
Yeah, like, and I wasn't a fighter. I'm not a fighter, but I ain't no punk either, though. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I respect rules. You know, my neighborhood is a blood neighborhood, and so there's certain aspects of the culture, the neighborhood, that even to this day, like it's in me. I can't, you know, I got 8th Street tattooed on my arm, so. It's like I'm from the neighborhood. There are things in the culture of the neighborhood to a point that you were asking earlier. The culture of our neighborhood was business. Okay. They sold crack, but it was business.
Right.
And they just had the wrong product. They understood wholesale, retail, distribution. They understood all of that. They just had the wrong product.
Right.
I understood they had the wrong product. And so
you were seeing the business mentality. So when did it click for you that's like, hey, hold up.
It's all coming together.
Yeah, it's all making sense. Wow. This is like, I'm having like this moment of like I'm seeing you in a different perspective now. So it's like, wow. Like, I'm serious. I'm over here like, this is like, I'm all like, the way you carry yourself, the way, like, it's all making so much sense. Holy crap.
I mean, these guys, I have.
Now, was it around you when you were younger? Were you seeing like this in action as like junior high? Or you just knew it was just like an unspoken thing?
Well, coming out of, now listen, this is what you got to understand. Coming from gang culture, you got guys that have been introduced to street life at 7, 8, 9 years old.
Were you approached at that now? Because honestly, you're, and excuse, like how I'm going to say this is with your story and you being a latchkey kid, I feel like that's a really great target of saying, hey, we're your family. We got your back. Did they ever approach you?
That was never a thing. So I got friends that I've been knowing since preschool.
Okay.
We all got the same background. And so my group didn't, the drug dealers were older.
Okay.
You know, so you have, you know, I'm 10, 11, 8, 9, 10. I'm hanging with, you know, my guys that's in that group. Then you have like 13, 14-year-olds. Then you have 15, 16. And so it was tiers.
So there's tiers of levels.
Yeah. And
so did you look at those top tiers and think, man, I want to be.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
That was your admiration.
Selling drugs was a goal. Because, and the reason why was because this one guy in particular, I really looked up to him because there was a guy when I was in junior high. If you was from the neighborhood, this dude bought lunch.
Wow.
When I see kids with cell phones at school now, it trips me out because they was calling the police on us for having pagers in junior high. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so this one guy, he was a 9th grader. I'm a 7th grader. Man, he come in, Tommy Hilfiger. This guy was taking his clothes to the cleaners as a 9th grader. That's how much money he was getting in the streets. All right.
Wow.
Now he was more flashy. This other guy that I looked up to.
But that's enticing when you're coming, probably wearing the same pair of pants you've worn for 3 days in a row because you don't have new ones. You know, I'm saying for like anyone in that.
Yes.
Like you're saying like, man, he's got this, but like, man, I'm wearing the same and I've got the same
other
lunch
guys
or not even have lunch at all.
Looked up to this, like I got the utmost respect for this guy. Even if he walked in here today, I mean, and if he needed to sit down, I would give him my seat.
Wow.
All right. He was flashy. I would see guys get arrested. Like when we were growing up, we knew who the undercover police were. We knew, like, okay, that's the police. Mm-hmm. This was during the time too when kidnapping was a thing.
Yeah.
So that van right there, that dude, he ain't from the neighborhood.
Okay, so y'all all kind of looked out for each other.
Yeah.
Everyone knew that you're surrounded.
You would get beat up quick.
Okay.
just because we talking these. We're all kids though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and so but this one guy, when he was selling crack. He had on just a baggy t-shirt. He'd wear sweats. His hair would be nappy, and his shoes wasn't flashy at all. But he had a bankroll in his sock, and unless you knew him, you didn't know he had the bankroll in his sock. He looked more like a junkie than a drug dealer.
Right.
So if you saw him with a junkie, you wasn't going to suspect that there was any transactions going on.
Wow.
That was the guy that as a matter of fact, I saw him a few weeks ago, and I asked him, I said, hey man, listen, did you ever do anything with productive with your money?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the answer he gave me, it blew my mind, but it shouldn't have because of how he carried himself on the streets.
Right.
Like you would have not, unless you were the police or from the neighborhood or a junkie, if you saw him walking down the street, you didn't know who he was, you would not look at him. That guy I looked up to the most. But I said, this guy is sharp. He's the sharp one.
Because he's sharp in his mind.
That's right.
He didn't try
and I thought this dude is amazing. I wanted to be like him.
Wow.
All
and
right?
That makes so much more sense now.
Yes.
It's like the puzzle. I mean, is it clicking for
I'm,
you
I'm
over
listening,
there?
like I'm
because
intrigued.
I'm like, this is like now that you're like, because you're painting I feel like you're painting such a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm living this moment. I do, because like I'm there with you and I'm understanding. And like now that's resonating with when I look at you now.
Yeah.
So like, wow,
yeah,
I'm having like this moment of
like,
no, you're not.
That's not
You've
mine.
never been.
And so the hustle, what I did was, the guy, the flashy guy, came to me one time and he said, hey man, if I'll pay you $50 a week if you will hold my stash.
Wow.
All right. So I said, I'm thinking, okay, cool.
That's a lot for you.
Yeah,
that time.
I'm a kid, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going into junior high, so I'm like, okay, I can make it.
Like $50 back in that day was like, it was great money.
I was telling my uncle about it, and because this uncle was like Uncle Jesse from Full House.
Yeah.
This was the cool uncle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He would not tell my grandparents that I'm having this conversation with. I had two uncles like that. One taught me how to shoot dice, and this one, he would listen to anything that I would tell him. So I'm like, hey man, I got this in those terms, I got this opportunity to lie. He's like, Chris, don't do it. Mm-hmm. He said, that's not wise. It's a foolish move. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, cool. So, but I'm watching these guys, right? But I want to make money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, well, I know even then, especially talking with my uncle, I said, okay, the concept is there, it's the product that's not there. Okay. Right. So what I did was using what I understood about what was going on. I went to the Dollar General. It was like a Family Dollar. But anyway, I went to the dollar store and they had a 10-pack of Winter Fresh bubble gum. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they did 10-pack, mm-hmm. and back then it was 10 cents a pack.
Yeah.
So I had a 10-pack of the 10-cent packs. Okay, so what I would do is I would buy 10 packs of 10-cent packs of Winter Fresh, and I would buy packs of Bubblicious bubble gum, mm-hmm. and I would sell the stick for 10 cents.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I got a 10-pack of 10.
Right,
you know,
right,
and so
it's 50, you're breaking up the product.
It's 50 cents a pack.
Yeah.
So that 10-cent pack, I'm making 40 cents off of each pack.
Right.
Okay. I'm in Darby. I'm gonna catch you after lunch because your stuff is. You need this.
Right. You're selling it like it's a necessity.
You
right?
need this Winter Fresh. So we get between the lockers and I'm like, boom. And I got the little planner and I'm like, boom, here's one pack. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
and they call it a day, you know?
Yeah.
And so I would get in trouble because I had this teacher's name was Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher had eyes in the back of his head. And so he would be on the chalkboard and he'd be like, Mr. Chaney, put the bubble gum away. And I'm like, dang, Mr. Fisher, I gotta get paid too. You know what I'm saying? And,
something tells me you could talk yourself out of any type of trouble.
Like
you were just Fisher, a very liked person.
He turned a blind eye many days, be selling bubble gum in his class, but that was kind of the first. I mean, we would cut grass, me and my cousin Josh. But we would cut grass to make money to go to eat the buffet at Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
You know, because
right, that's a big deal.
Yeah, we was like, hey man, look.
Because back then you didn't get to, like, now I feel like going out to eat is just an everyday occurrence if we wanted to. But when we were younger,
man, look,
that was like a special occasion, right? That's a big deal.
We cut a couple yards, make a little money, and ride our bikes to Pizza Hut on Grand.
And that was it.
Almost all day, you know, and then he'd ride his bike back to Yorkshire, and I would go back to H Street. Uh-huh. And even then, like there's no way, like, I would let my kid at 10, 11 years old ride a bicycle.
We were
from
gone.
I'm talking about, like, we ride our bike to the mall.
Yes.
Like, they didn't even know it was because we get back. Listen,
and
I gotta be home by 3:00.
Mm-hmm. Wait, I was like, when those street lights come, my mom knew like 3 or 4 houses we'd be at with our bikes.
Yeah.
Because if we weren't, there was no phones to check up on the landlines or whatever. But it was like, if you ain't home by the time those street lights come on, your ass is in trouble.
And my grandpa,
so we like, damn, we just left the pig and toad to get the snow cone.
No, you got to move.
Go. So take me to so junior high is starting to click with you. You were one decision away from either selling drugs or selling Bubblicious bubble gum. So you get into high school.
No, so the drugs. So I had that conversation with my uncle.
Right.
But it was my cousin. So I'm in like 8th grade, and my cousin lived in Midland Heights. So I'm with my cousin, and we're talking, and I say to him, man, I'm getting ready to start selling crack. The conversation with my uncle was me holding this guy's pack. That's a different situation.
Okay. But still, that gave you a little bit of like pause because you.
Well, I just didn't want it in my house.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so I'm watching how these guys are moving. He probably it'd have been
bad. Yeah, right.
And But I'm watching how these guys moving, and I'm thinking, I'm smarter than them. Mm-hmm. It's not about being smarter than them because, they were basically kids too.
Right.
You know, I'm just younger than them.
Right.
You know, so they're seeing things that I'm not seeing, but I'm thinking that I know. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I go to my cousin Lee and I say, "Hey man, I'm thinking about selling crack." And he goes, "This is 8th grade," and he says to me, we were walking down the street, and he said, "If you decide to sell crack, then we can't associate." and so my brother, he had just went to the penitentiary. They were robbing gas stations or something random. My brother was 14.
Wow. I have a 14-year-old. Like, I just can't even picture my baby. Like, I can't
Yeah, he was 14. It was 3 of them, and so they was hitting these gas stations, and he ended up going to the penitentiary. So my brother was gone, and Lee was my brother. Mm-hmm. So when my cousin, who was like my brother, says, "Hey, look, if you decide to sell crack, our relationship is done." I'm like, is that worth this relationship?
Wow. Right. So you really valued what he said.
Yeah, I was like, and so he says, "Man, look, I'm about to start rapping. You can, so this is the option. You can rap or you can sell crack."
Wow. So this is wow.
And so I was like,
I was waiting to get into
this. Let's do music. Now I'm a nerd. I've been a nerd. I got the gangster nerd shirt on. Yeah. But I was a nerd. They called me gangster nerd when I was a kid, like poking fun.
Right.
There was a couple of guys. Another guy, he's from a different neighborhood. His glasses was as big as my glasses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want glasses? Yeah, I got contacts.
Yeah.
And my glasses looked like Pimp C's glasses when he first got out the joint. You know what I mean? The joints was huge.
Yeah.
And the other guy from the other neighborhood, he had glasses. They called us nerds, gangster nerds.
Because your aesthetic-wise wasn't...
red bandanas. I got my red Dickies, red T-shirts, the red bandanas. I got the red laces intertwined.
Yeah.
And I got these glasses. Mm-hmm. And I'm taking bikes apart and doing random nerd stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not in the streets. Ain't nobody testing me, though, because that's the nature of the neighborhood. I was a leader in my crew.
Right.
There was guys in my crew that, for what we were at that moment, at that time, this dude, he's a nutcase. You know what I'm saying? And the only reason he ain't going off on you is because I'm saying I don't do it.
So they have respect for you.
Yeah, but we had a mutual...
who you were authentically, I feel like.
Well, so my grandpa, what I realized looking back, like my grandpa never kowtowed to anybody.
Right.
You know, and you're talking about somebody that's come through Jim Crow era and the 60s and all that other kind of stuff. My grandpa never saw himself as less than anybody. So I never saw myself less than anybody.
That's one thing I've always said about you. You've always exhumed confidence, not cockiness.
Yeah.
But confidence. Mm-hmm. And I can see where some people who doesn't understand that mentality could view it as one way or the other, but you've always carried yourself like you're important.
Well, so this was something that I got growing up, you come from gang culture, you see certain things, weakness, people prey on weakness. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I never wanted anybody to assume that I was that you could get one over on me.
Right.
And so it was mandatory almost in my crew that I hung with, that bro, you walk, we together, head up, shoulders back, bro. We don't need none of that, because I don't know who's gonna assume if they got beef with these guys.
Right.
We all from the same neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I don't know who's gonna assume that I'm connected here, because the older guys, we respected the older guys. We just didn't hang out with the older guys. You know what I mean? Right. And so I don't know, outside of them selling crack, I don't know what they got going on.
Right. And it's just about you having conversations.
Yeah. And so I'm like, nah, you if we kicking it, I need you to be ready at any point, and if we need to get on down, we can get on down. You know
I've
what I'm saying?
always had like that thought, but it's like one or two things going to happen.
That's
I'm
right.
either going to get my ass beat or you're going to get yours. But either way, we're going to handle our business.
And wasn't nobody going to whoop my ass because you had to whoop our ass.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. So y'all were like,
like if you saw, I nowadays, I don't do entourages. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
if I'm show up somewhere, I'm generally by myself. When I was growing up, if you saw me, you saw one of I had 4 like really great friends growing up. One guy named Brennan, Lamar, Marcus. We had little Tony. There was Trenton. Trent was the only white dude in our neighborhood that kicked it with us.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if they see this, forgive me if I leave somebody out. But them 5, we were tight. So if you saw little Tony, he was probably with Marcus.
Right.
If you saw Trenton, he was probably with Brennan. If you saw me, it was either Brennan or Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But back in the day, you never really saw someone just like cruising on their bike by themselves.
No.
Like even back when in my neighborhood, which is a completely different situation, there was always 5 or 6 of us deep.
That's right.
So
and
we
then,
were always
you got to factor in the kidnapping.
Yeah, because you might take one of us, you have to take all of us.
And we
I mean, that's true. My mom never said that buddy system was real.
You remember those? I say remember they're hot now, but they the Nikes that said Air on the side.
Yes. Yeah.
So I had a pair of those. I've never owned it. Yeah, the Pippins. Yeah. I've never owned a pair of Jordans in my life. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, so we carry box cutters though. All right. So what I did was I took my box. I had a mini box cutter about that big. I took the box cutter and slid like where this right there, and I put my box cutter down there. Inside the shoe. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Because you weren't getting robbed for crap. I mean, you were probably, if you were wearing nice shoes, you were worried about people.
Well, I didn't have the nice shoes.
Right, okay.
My grandpa, they went out their way to buy them.
Right.
But me, I'm like, again, I slid a hole, slid that box cutter down there. Bubba had his, Lamar had his, Marcus, you didn't know what. And then we had jumpsuits, Dickie jumpsuits. And so you didn't know what we had down in the jumpsuits.
Right.
We didn't have guns and nothing like that. We was young, but it might have been a baseball bat. It might have been, you know what I'm saying?
No, you're right.
And we just because you don't know what's going on. I mean, these vans would come through the neighborhood, and and we would stand there and stare at them. Like, what's up? Either you're a kidnapper or you're the police.
Yeah. Right.
Either way. Right. And but it was that, and so it was a rough transition because I didn't even like rap music. So when my cousin comes to me, he's like, "You can rap," but I didn't listen to rap music.
So that was never like you never were like writing down rhymes.
No, my cousin used to make me write. He used to. Bro, you gonna write a rap today?
First off, shout out to your cousin though for giving you that. I'm saying for giving you that option.
Yeah.
And also for you having that respect for his word.
Well, so Lee had an older brother.
The trajectory of your entire life.
Well, Lee's older brother is what changed his trajectory.
Wow. So it's like.
Yeah, Lee had an older brother that got, most of the time when you're growing up in certain cultures and certain spaces, if you don't get an opportunity to get out of that, you don't know what's out there. Yeah. So Lee's brother moved to Fayetteville.
You don't know better, you don't do better.
That's right.
And you project that onto the next person, and then the tradition and the cycle continues.
Yes.
So whoever broke his cycle.
So Dion moved to Northwest Arkansas before Northwest Arkansas was popping.
Wow.
All right. Like now you hear Northwest Arkansas, it's popping. Now Dion was up there long before that, but he worked in restaurants and stuff like that, and so he got exposed to a culture that Dion said, "I won't ever go back. Like I won't ever go back to. I won't ever be what was shown to me." And this dude.
And this was back before social media,
yes,
where we were able to click. And we've had conversations like this before. Yeah. Where, even me as like a teen mom in high school, I didn't know there was anything out there other than what I was living in.
That's right.
And now these kids can go, they see it.
So
now
the exposure is
different. Yeah.
So Lee with Chaney or Dion had his own apartment. I think he was 18, 19 when he got his apartment. I don't know, but Lee would go to Fayetteville in the summer and live, a couple weeks here and there with his brother. So then Lee got exposed to some stuff that we wasn't getting. Like I said, he's from Midland Heights. Yeah. They stayed fighting over there in Midland Heights. That was a different.
I've heard the documentary coming out about Midland Heights.
Man,
crazy.
That's a whole
different thing.
Yeah. And by the time you go from Kimmons to Allied Gardens in that time, you had to run a gauntlet. You know what I'm saying? So for Lee to be able to get out and see things different. What he did to me was he said, "Hey man, listen, there's something different out here." And all I saw, my neighborhood produced pimps and
drugs,
crack dealers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You got pimps and drug dealers. Lee's neighborhood, they was knocking heads over there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And if you couldn't fight, you might as well not leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
And for real, I was like, man. And so Lee got that exposure. When I told Lee what was going on, he said, nah, man, it's something different. We about to start doing music. And I'm like, bro, I don't even like rap. You know.
And what year was this? So I can kind of get an idea of what kind of rap music. Okay, so this was before 96. The 2000 genres of music, of rap, right? This was 96.
Yeah, this is 96.
So, like, who was big during that time with rap music?
Like Snoop,
like Dr. Dre, Biggie, all that. Yeah. Before, like, the early 2000s.
And so then, you know, we was listening because we, you know, been the Heights, Blood neighborhood, YOGs. And then we had Bloods and some GDs in our neighborhoods, a couple Crips, but it's mainly Bloods. And so what we listened to, like, I got asked this the other day. I was at Prohibition and somebody was asking me. I said, man, I didn't listen to East Coast music.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to Master P and West Coast music.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to Mac 10, DJ Quick, because they was all Bloods. Once we found out they was Bloods, we were like, we listening to their music.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and then of course Master P stuff. I mean, he just and Master P, his style of how he moved is how we ended up getting signed to that independent label.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So were they rapping about what you could resonate with? Is that why that was more prominent? Or is it just like the blood loyalty?
For me, it was I listened to them because they was blood.
Okay.
Mac 10, DJ Quick.
Yeah. But Master P was something different.
Nah, Master P was a businessman, and once we started seeing how Master P moved and Outkast and Suave House, you remember that's you know, A-Ball, MJG. You start seeing in UGK, you start seeing how these artists move, especially as an artist. Now we rapping. I'm in 8th grade. We did our first show. I was in 8th grade, and I was petrified. Didn't move on stage at all. And yeah, so at that point, 9th grade, so we started this group. It's called SCK, and but everybody was spread out. Lee was at Kimmons. I was at Darby. Josh was at Kimmons, Kevin was at Darby, and Kevin and I didn't get along. He was a Blood, but he's from a different neighborhood, and he was with guys that I didn't get along with, but they was his homeboys. Mm-hmm. So I was like, if it's F them, it's F you.
Yeah.
and that's how it was.
Yeah.
And so then Lee and Kevin, they became real good friends. So now I'm like, so I gotta be cool with this dude because you cool with this dude? Mm-hmm. And Kevin is the coolest cat you will ever meet. The coolest. And so once we became friends, you know, me becoming friends with Kevin really, you know, because depending on which way I went to Kevin's house, I had to pass a couple houses that if I passed his house and dude is outside, it's like, is it gonna be a problem or not?
Yeah. Me
becoming friends with Kevin gave me that pass. Mm-hmm. In that particular neighborhood because I didn't go in that neighborhood. I had no reason to be over there so outside of Kevin being over there. You know, and me and this guy, we ended up becoming acquaintances, you know, over time because of Kevin. Kevin like, nah, man, this dude ain't. And I'm like, and he telling the dude, nah, man, Chris ain't. Okay, cool. Off the strength of who you are, I'll trust that these guys are okay.
I'm just I'm just trying to process what a grown-up situation this is because I have kids this age at this time. And like, my son is just worried about his next Fortnite game or his basketball game, you know? And I mean, but it's like, what a mature, like, he is not worried about, you know, what street, you know, and it's just like, what an insane environment to have to grow up in. It's
crazy thinking about. Like, I'm sitting here having a conversation
and having kids, like, you know, and like us having kids and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Like, picturing your children in that situation, you're like, how the fuck did I make, like, what is this?
You
like,
know,
I'm just like blown away. And I'm not that much younger than you, so to be completely honest, when I was riding my bikes in the street, I grew up in very poor situations, you know, we didn't have a car at times and things like that, you know, but it was never like a neighborhood thing. And I never knew that this was happening on the other side. I had no idea this was happening.
People don't think about it being Fort Smith either, right? Because you're like, this is Fort Smith.
Yeah.
And the mayor at the time, they made it a point for some of this stuff not to be publicized.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because this is what you got to understand too about Fort Smith. When Banging in Little Rock was happening,
And I lived in Little Rock for a while when I was younger.
Yeah,
that Baseline Road.
All that documentary.
I see that documentary.
When that was going on, these guys that I'm talking about, they was driving down there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like they was old enough. So why I said one time in the rap line, I said when they was banging in Little Rock, we was slanging in Little Rock. Like they was like it was a lot going on in that time frame that when you really look back, you like, dang, that's crazy. And for where I'm at now, I'm square. You know, I'm as square as can be. Corporate America square. You know what I mean? But it's like.
Do you think rapping? So when you started rapping, because that's when I knew who you were, and I was telling you earlier how we were setting the scene back when Cruising Rogers was the thing. So I'm Cruising Rogers. I went to Southside. I got Little Miranda and her Jeep Wrangler, burnt CD. Pop it in. SCK came on. Of course, the song that I think everyone knew who you were, but it was Bobby Lopez at the time. So explain to me, you started rapping. Who was Bobby Lopez, and why was that a thing?
Okay,
why did you change your name?
So when we started SCK, it was initially a Christian rap group.
That's right. Yes, okay. It was. Yeah.
So, and again, it's what you gotta understand about us. What we did was, if you get an opportunity, and I don't even know how you would find it. Any of our early music, what you did was you just took guys from gang culture and put them in somebody's church.
Mm-hmm. Now, was church any prominent? Because I know that even in the gang culture, from what I've learned and understood, church was very prevalent. Yeah, my grandpa, man. Did y'all go to church every Sunday?
Yeah, my grandpa made sure that
no matter what, you're going to church.
Yeah, my grandpa didn't know anything of what I had going on.
Okay.
He didn't know he didn't know I had bandanas. Now he found some dice in my room one time.
Yeah. But what religion was he, if you don't mind?
Christian.
So it was just like Christian.
Baptist.
Was Baptist.
Staunch Baptist. And he the way he met my grandmother was through it. They had a traveling quartet.
Wow.
And so he was doing music, and he met my grandmother and just stayed.
So religion was a very prominent thing in your household. Baptist.
Not as like they didn't just. My grandpa told me one time, we were driving down the street, he looked at me, I said he was a matter-of-fact guy. So he said, Chris, let me tell you something, son. You don't get saved, you going to hell.
Right, yeah.
I said, okay, I guess I'm going to go get saved.
Right.
So the next Sunday, they did the altar call. I was there. The following Sunday, I was getting dipped in the water. Mm-hmm. I said, now I checked that box. Outside of that, there was no Bible studies in the house. Okay,
so it wasn't like you. So, but it's just basically... You understand, you had to be saved. And then we just moved on.
But there was nothing else.
Like we're not doing Bibles. Okay, no, so it wasn't. So whenever you started this Christian group, did you look at it as a business outlet? Like if we do Christian music, this is kind of our way in because maybe the rap music was a little bit more prominent over here? Or was
the choice was, and Lee gave several people this choice. Like it was almost like a ultimatum.
Okay.
We knew, like, he was like a cool version of Suge Knight. Like, you gonna rap.
Yeah.
If you gonna rap, if you kicking it with me. And I'm doing Christian rap. Mm-hmm. So if you rap with me, not only are you gonna rap, you gonna do Christian rap.
Okay, so he said the president's for your Christian genre.
This is what we gonna do.
Okay.
This is what we go. Now he could have did it. Lee could have been anybody. He's a mastermind. He could have been anybody he wanted to be. Uh-huh. But he chose to be a rapper, a Christian rapper. Lee, I don't know how. Lee was going to Harvest Time. I don't know how Lee ended up going to Harvest Time.
Yeah.
But we was at Harvest Time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you got these.
I used to go to Harvest Time too.
Man, and I think that's how we. I think we met your brother and do that. But it's like, so now you got these kids. So we go from Bloods to Christian Bloods, right? And so then our merchandise reflected the neighborhood. We had bandanas, black bandanas, red bandanas, but they were custom bandanas for us.
Wow.
They said SCK on them, Southern Christian Clique. You know what I'm saying?
Southern Christian Clique.
We had our own sign that we threw up, like a gang sign. So you got these kids, and we at church, we in there like, hey, and these. kids from urban, suburban parts of town. They look at us like, who the hell are these dudes?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We had church camp.
Yeah.
Like
180 was a big thing back in our time.
Listen, we walk
180,
but we walk into the 180 like, hey, we here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And at that time, I got my license when I was 14. So at that time, we was driving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we ended up. So this is into high school. So now everybody's together. Everybody that was at Kimmons and at Darby, we at Northside. So we done clicked up. It's like the Power Rangers. We are here, and not only are we're here, we making a scene. So we doing talent shows. We did the anthems for the basketball team, for the football teams. Mm-hmm. We write these records. We running FCA. All of that stuff. Now I was on the football team. I didn't play.
You ran track too, right?
I did run track. I was fantastic at track, but football, I just
you're just there. Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
Now, were you probably the first music group you think here in Fort Smith at that time? Was there others?
No.
I just remember in Southside there was a couple.
Several.
So there was
several
a group
things. So this
that,
was like
if I had to say, and I could be wrong, and if these brothers hear this, I apologize. But if I had to say the first kind of rap group that I heard, that I found out about, was a group called P5.
Okay.
Yeah, P5.
Man, and P5, those guys, man, they were, for us, they were the foundation. Then you had D-Dub, you had Dollar Dean, you got Felix, Daffy D.
Yeah. So when I came up into high school, I just knew like individual artists. I never knew of any groups.
And those guys,
except for you guys, you're actually the first group I knew about.
We created our group around knowing these other groups.
Okay.
P5, I think it was like 5. It was 5. P5. It was, and so we created our group around knowing that these guys, the only difference between us and them is we said Jesus in our records.
So I was going to say, were y'all the first Christian group that you knew of? Okay.
Yeah, okay. But we were still, like, the lyrics was still, like, gangster lyrics. It was very gangster.
I do remember
but
that.
But it was like, we were just saying, Jesus, instead of beating up people, we beating up the devil. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, to the and the way we moved as a unit in such a way that we would have guys come to us saying they wanted to be Christian rappers because we was doing the shows.
Yeah.
It wasn't that many guys doing shows. They had talent shows and stuff like that. But what would happen was because we didn't cuss in our music,
you had more doors open for you guys. I was about to ask that. Did you think being labeled as a Christian artist, that opened up more opportunity for you guys?
Because nobody was afraid of what we was going to say.
Well, and I remember, because I grew up, I have a Pentecostal background. I went to a Pentecostal private school and stuff, and I remember coming from a secular world into Pentecost, and then going from public school to private school Pentecost. You know, people were turning me on to music, and I'm like, man, I'm used to listening to this, but they turned me on to like Kirk Franklin, CeCe Winans. Now Kirk Franklin was like,
what the hell is this?
Right.
In comparison,
but then you listen to like Kirk Franklin, like, man, it's gospel music, you're feeling it, and it's rap. And I mean, you can dance to it, you can jive to it.
We wasn't listening to no Kirk, though. Kirk wasn't for us.
Right.
This guy was bouncing around. He was like MC Hammer to us.
Right. Well, yeah. But I'm saying, like, that music was like as close as I could get to secular music and still feeling like I'm listening to anything but church music.
So we, and
until you guys came out.
And we was all over the town.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, so that's, high school, because it's 10th, then it was 10th,
11th.
Yeah. So we, 10th grade, 11th grade, we doing the talent shows, doing all that other kind of stuff. So what ended up happening was I graduated in 2002. Right? So, all right, let me tell you, this is a funny story. Remember that record, My Neck, My Bag?
Yes.
So I'm driving down the street. This is playing on the radio. And I said, man, this is trash. I'm like, this is a terrible record. In my mind, because of course I'm coming from Christian rap too, so the lyrics are just crazy. And I'm like, this is a terrible record. So Kisser at the time was on Greenwood, Greenwood. So I'm passing Kisser, and I say, you know what? I'm finna give him my CD. So I turn around, I knock on the door, and Rick Hayes opens the door, and he's like, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Man, I want to put my song on the radio." And he was like, "All right, give it to me. I'll take a listen to it." So I give him the CD. I drive off, and I'm waiting for this guy to call me. Well, Rick used to do this thing once a year where he would just go to like the desert and just be chilling and regroup and then come back. So I'm at the Sally Ann's getting gas. I see Rick. This is like a few weeks after I give him the CD. I see Rick on his way to the radio station, so I get a U-turn on it. Now again, we all came from gang culture, so there are things that to this day that I stand on that it ain't going nowhere.
Right.
And the fact that he said he was gonna get at me and he didn't get at me, I felt disrespected.
Right. Like
so
you were just brushed off.
Yeah, we're not playing that.
Yeah.
I'll pull back. Hey man, you said you was gonna holler at me, man. What's going on?
Yeah.
He looked at me. I was working at El Chico's at the time as a cook. He looks at me and he goes, "You ever been on the radio?" And I said, "No." He said, "You want to be on the radio?" I said, "I guess." He said, "Come back here at 6 o'clock." All right. I came back at 6 o'clock. I graduated high school. I'm 18. I walk in the studio and I meet Ram Cunningham. All right.
Shout out to Ram. We all like that.
And Big Dog was Rick's radio handler. Big Dog says, "Ram, I want you to train him. He's going to DJ on Crew." And 92 Crew now is La Raza. Okay.
Was it 92?
Yeah, 92.3.
92.3. That was like, I think, the first hip hop station that came out. Yeah.
And so,
you're bringing back the nostalgia.
Yeah. So he's like, "I'm gonna train you for Crew." All right. Kisser was in one room, Crew was in the other room, and that's how Arkansas ended up on the radio.
That's how. Wow.
Yeah, and it was not me.
And Arkansas was the song that I remember you the most for. I mean, it played everywhere.
And the only way we could get it to play on the radio is the radio station was adamant about I couldn't play it because it was my record.
Okay.
They said you can play it, but it has to be requested.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you can't unilaterally make the decision to play this record. It's got to be requested.
Okay.
All right.
From the people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we did was we got the word out. Like, hey, look, call up to the station and request this record. And I would record them requesting it. So I, CYA. You know what I mean?
Right.
Dog, listen, they requested this. Here's the proof.
Because I remember those radio stations were so big on requests.
Yes.
Call in your next request. Like, I know it's hard. You don't really listen. Yeah, but I remember 92.3 and the request for your song. I mean, wow.
It's and
bring me back to high. Like, this is crazy. I'm like, you're bringing me back to high school.
Yeah, because the story, man. Like, this is the good shit.
I just had no idea. Like, this is what this podcast is about. Like,
because it don't seem like too long ago.
It doesn't.
No, it don't.
It wasn't.
But
It was not too long ago.
The time just flies. But like, what ended up happening was so then now I'm learning about the music industry.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't. The business stuff came later. But like, I'm learning about the industry and how the industry works. And so I go to Lee and I say, "Lee, bro, I got this." Because Arkansas was the first record we did that wasn't churchy.
Right.
Like it wasn't. Because we recorded that song like 3 times. The version that you hear now is not the original version. No, but even in the original version, our lyrics, we said the religious stuff in code.
Yeah, I remember. Can you still rap part of it?
No, not the first one.
That was like Arkansas. I mean, it was catchy.
Yeah, the hook never changed, but the verses changed. We changed the verses like 3 times on that. And so, like, if you go on YouTube now, that version that's on YouTube is not I got the original version on a cassette tape.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
And so, but what I told the team at the time, SCK, I said, "Listen, we have a huge opportunity to be on radio." We would among the first rappers to Trey and myself.
Yeah.
the first rappers to be on the radio. All right. But I'm trying to open the door for everybody now because I'm the DJ, you know? And so I'm like, listen, but this is the criteria. Mm-hmm. We got to change our lyrics. We can't, that stuff ain't playing on the radio. No. You know, they didn't like that. So we ended up kind of having a falling out, you know, behind some stuff. And so we left. 2 Trey, which is Brandon Cox, Josh, and myself, Josh Enoch. We left and started Southland.
Okay. And I remember Southland too.
Yeah. And we actually started Southland in the radio station. I called a meeting because I had keys to the radio station. I was off. It was a Saturday, and I had keys to the station. I said, man, just meet me at the station. Let's talk. And so, you know, we said, hey, man, this is what we're going to do. Let's do it. 2 Trey and I had kind of been working on the side thing anyway. But the side at the time, the little side things weren't. They didn't really like that. You know what I'm saying? And so it didn't go against the main vision. And so that was kind of the rift because we were trying to be more forward thinking with access to the radio, and the main vision. The team didn't care about radio at the time. Right. And so I said, well, dang, we need to do something different. And so, to back up one of the first shows that I did, I told you I did that show when I was in 8th grade. That show, there was a guy at the time when I said how No Limit affected how we moved. Yeah. At the time, there was a guy that showed up at this first show that we opened up for him. He was on a Christian rap label that mirrored what No Limit was doing. They were the biggest Christian rap label in the country at the time. But they were just like No Limit. The artwork was like No Limit. The artists were like No Limit. But they were just all Christian rappers. Okay? We met the guy. He, at the time, the guy that was making our beats, they started talking, Some things happened. We lost communication with the guy. That guy ends up leaving the record label, Christian record label, and starting his own label. He's doing this circuit, you know, because once you get to know these pastors and you pastors, you just reach back out to them. Hey, I'm in town, da da da. So he comes back to Fort Smith. We end up we're a different group now. The first group was me, Lee, and Josh. This group was me, Josh, and 2 Trey. All right. So then he's like, I want to sign you to my label. So we're at church and we're like, we don't know what that means.
Right. It just sounds like, well, we've made it.
Right. We about to leave Fort Smith. Yeah. So
today's episode would not be possible without our sponsors. Today's sponsor is Stainless Innovations, Designs, and Fabric Custom. It's an equipment for front and back of house food service faculties across America. Headquartered here in Fort Smith, Arkansas. To get in contact with them, 479-783-1900. Stainless Innovations, thank you for sponsoring our podcast for today.